If I see the phrase basket of deplorables, I am willing to bet you have an immediate, almost visceral reaction.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you voted for or even if you follow politics. Those words, they take you right back to 2016.
It's arguably the phrase that defined that entire election, maybe that whole era of politics.
It's definitely in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, and this is what we need to get into, for most people, the memory just stops there. It stops at the headline, at the insult itself.
And that's a huge missed opportunity to understand what was really going on.
It is.
Which is exactly why we're here. For this deep dive, we've gone through the speech transcripts, campaign memos, post-election analyses, all of it.
Right.
And look, we're not here to relitigate 2016.
No, that's been done to death.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission today is really to dissect this as a phenomenon. We want to understand how a strategy that's designed to divide your opposition actually ends up unifying them.
How does an insult, something meant to shame people, become a badge of honor?
Right. Usually you insult someone, they get mad. In this case, they went out and bought T-shirts. It's fascinating.
Exactly. So let's get into it. The scene, the context. It's everything here. It's September 9th, 2016. Where is Hillary Clinton?
She's in New York City, and the venue is really crucial. She's at an LGBT campaign fundraiser at Cipriani Wall Street.
Cipriani Wall Street. So an opulent place.
Oh, yeah. It's a former bank building, massive marble columns, very high society, very wealthy, and crucially, very friendly room for her. Barbra Streisand had just performed.
Okay, so that's key. This is not a rally in Ohio with a mixed crowd. This is a private event with donors.
Precisely, and that dictates the tone, right?
Yeah.
Politicians tend to speak a little more loosely in those settings. They feel safe, like they're among friends. The filter comes off.
And she gets up on stage, starts talking about Trump's supporters, and decides to categorize them.
This is the moment. But what's so interesting is how she starts the sentence, something nobody ever remembers. She almost gives herself a legal out. She says, and this is a direct quote, to just be grossly generalistic. She's literally flagging, hey, I'm about to paint with a really broad brush here.
And then she drops the line.
Then she drops it. You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
The word half. Every time I read that, it's the word half that just stops you in your tracks.
It's the dynamite in the sentence. It really is.
It's a mathematical claim. It's not some. It's not a few. If Trump gets 60 million votes, she is literally talking about 30 million people.
That specific number, half,
Yeah.
is what made it sound like a clinical diagnosis, not just some off-the-cuff observation. And she didn't stop there. She defined what she meant.
She gives a list.
The whole list, she
All right.
says. Racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic.
Wow.
And she makes this really interesting point about the internet, which, looking back, is so prescient. She said Trump had lifted them up, that he'd given a platform to websites that used to have maybe 11,000 readers and now had 11 million.
She was trying to draw a direct line between the darker corners of the internet, the alt-right, and the mainstream Republican ticket.
Exactly. She calls them irredeemable. Says they are not America. And that's the soundbite that played on a loop for the next 2 months. But, and this is the part that I think will surprise a lot of people, there was a second basket.
The forgotten basket. I honestly don't think I'd retain this part at all until we started prepping for this.
It's almost completely written out of the story. Immediately after the deplorables part, she pivots to the other half of his supporters.
And the tone just completely shifts, doesn't
A
it?
complete 180. She stops talking about racism and starts talking about, economics, about people who feel the government and the economy have left them behind.
She gets surprisingly specific and empathetic.
Very. She mentions people seeing their jobs disappear, and then she uses this incredibly specific, tragic image, losing a child to the heroin epidemic.
Yeah, that's not an insult. That's trying to connect.
It really is. And she concludes by saying these people are desperate for change and that, quote, those are people we have to understand and empathize with.
Okay, so if she has this whole nuanced theory, basket A is the fringe, basket B is the economically anxious, why did it blow up so badly? Was the deplorables line just a slip of the tongue?
No, all the evidence suggests this was not an accident, not a gaffe in the traditional sense. She'd actually been road testing this idea for weeks.
Really? This was a planned strategy.
It seems so. Just a few weeks earlier, in a speech in Reno, she talked about Trump helping a radical fringe take over the GOP, and she explicitly mentioned the alt-right. The day before this fundraiser, she did an interview on Israel's Channel 2 and used the exact same two big baskets metaphor.
So it was a deliberate strategy. What was the goal then? Why would you want to insult millions of potential voters?
It's a classic divide and conquer play. You have to remember, in 2016, there were a lot of moderate establishment Republicans who were deeply uncomfortable with Trump.
The never Trumpers.
The never Trumpers, exactly. The campaign strategy was to try and peel them away, to separate those everyday Republicans from the alt-right.
So force them to look at the people in that first basket and say, I'm not with them.
Right. She was trying to shame them out of that coalition. And she was bringing proof, too. In her speeches, she was talking about Steve Bannon running the campaign, his ties to Breitbart News. She was even reading Breitbart headlines from the stage.
What kind of headlines?
I mean, things like, would you rather your child had feminism or cancer?
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So she's holding that up and basically saying, see, this isn't your grandfather's Republican Party. This is something else, something darker.
But the whole strategy depends on the audience actually accepting your categories. And that's where it all fell apart because of that one word.
Half.
Half. The very next day, the backlash is huge. She has to issue a statement.
She does, but let's be precise about what she regretted. She said she regretted saying half. She admitted that was wrong. But she stood by the core sentiment. She doubled down on condemning Trump for amplifying hateful views and voices.
But it was too late. The horse wasn't just out of the barn. It was leading the parade.
The GOP pounced. It was the perfect gift. It was the rallying cry they'd been waiting for.
Trump's reaction was smart. He didn't just attack her back. He positioned himself as a defender.
A brilliant populist move. He said, you know, while my opponent slanders you, I call you hardworking American patriots. It let him pivot from being the aggressor to being the protector of the common person against this coastal elite.
And Mike Pence, his running mate, took it even further.
Pence said that showing that kind of disdain from millions of Americans disqualifies her from being president. It just fed perfectly into the narrative they were building, that the establishment doesn't just disagree with you, they actively despise you.
Right, Kellyanne Conway was all over it, saying Clinton had insulted the very people she promised to uplift.
It confirmed every suspicion they wanted voters to have about her. But here's the twist. This is what makes this story so unique. Usually when a politician insults a group, that group gets defensive. They deny it.
They say, how dare you?
Exactly. That's not me. But Trump supporters, they didn't run from it. They embraced it.
This is that idea of reappropriation, right? Taking back a slur.
A perfect example, a stigma reversal.
Yeah.
You know, like activists reclaiming the word queer, or even what happened with nasty woman later in that same election. They took deplorables, a word meant to cast them out, and they wore it like armor.
And that moment in Miami, I remember watching that live on TV and just thinking, this is political theater on a whole other level.
The Les Miserables parody.
Yes. Trump walks on stage, and the music playing is, Do You Hear the People Sing? From Limby.
Which is, you know, a song about French peasants rising up against the monarchy. The irony of a billionaire using it.
It's thick, yeah. But the giant screen behind him, it doesn't say, Make America Great Again. It says in that font, Le Deplorables.
It was genius. It turned an insult from an elite into a banner of rebellion. Suddenly, they weren't deplorables. They were revolutionaries.
And the internet, the very place she was criticizing, just exploded.
Oh, the memes were everywhere. Roger Stone, Donald Trump Jr., they shared that parody movie poster, styled after the action movie The Expendables.
But it was called The Deplorables.
And it had Pepe the Frog on it.
Yeah, which was a direct nod to the alt-right.
It was. They were basically saying to Clinton, you think we're trolls? You think we're fringe? Fine, we are, and we're proud of it. It completely neutralized the shame she was trying to create.
So instead of shaming them away from the alt-right, she pushed them right into its arms, metaphorically speaking.
The campaign started selling official merchandise. Proud to be deplorable, it became an identity, and it all culminated in the Deplorable.
The Deplorable, right before the inauguration.
January 2017. A black tie victory lap at the National Press Building, of all places. Named after the insult that was supposed to destroy them, they were toasting with champagne to being deplorable.
So let's analyze this. Did it actually cost her the election? I mean, that feels too simple, but it's the question everyone asks.
It's the million-dollar question, and analysts are still fighting about it. The most obvious parallel everyone draws is with Mitt Romney in 2012.
The 47% gaffe.
Exactly. Romney at a private fundraiser saying 47% of Americans are dependent upon government and see themselves as victims.
And it just fed this narrative that he was an out-of-touch rich guy.
It confirmed a suspicion people already had. Political attacks really stick when they do that. And the argument is that Basket or Deplorables did the exact same thing to Clinton. It confirmed the suspicion that she was an elitist who looked down on working-class people.
You also mentioned a historical parallel I'd never heard of, the vermin comment in Britain.
Right, the columnist Charles Moore pointed this out. Back in 1948, a very famous Labour politician, Nye Bevan, called the Conservative Party lower than vermin. It's pretty harsh, yeah. Caused a huge scandal. And what did the Conservatives do? They formed a vermin club. They made little lapel pins with rats on them. It's the same human impulse.
You insult us, we form a club. But what about the actual data from 2016? Did this comment move votes?
Well, Diane Hessen was tracking undecided voters for the Clinton campaign. She was in focus groups with them every single day. And she said that after that comment, quote, all hell broke loose.
All hell broke loose.
Yeah. For her, that was the moment she saw the largest single shift of undecided voters away from Clinton and toward Trump.
So it wasn't just about firing up his base, it was about pushing the undecideds away from her.
That's her argument. And even her own campaign manager, Robbie Mook, later admitted it definitely could have alienated people. Clinton herself, in her book What Happened, basically called it a political gift to Trump.
That's a huge admission.
It is. But, to be fair, there is a counterview. Courtney Weaver at the Financial Times argued it's, foolish to pin an entire election loss on one phrase. There was the Comey letter, the emails, the economy, a million things.
Sure.
But even she said, well, it certainly didn't help.
There's that one take from the political scientist Charles Murray. He goes really big with his analysis.
Who does? He suggested that one comment might have changed the history of the world.
That feels a little dramatic.
It sounds it, but his argument is interesting. He says it wasn't just about the votes. It was about crystallizing the entire narrative of the culture war, the idea of the new upper class looking down on everyone else. It drew a line in the sand. You were either in the basket or you were the one sneering at the basket.
She wanted to separate people, to isolate a fringe group, but by using that word half, she ended up compressing her two baskets into one.
That's the perfect way to put it. The people she described in the second basket, the ones who were desperate for change, they didn't hear the empathy. They just heard the insult directed at their neighbor, or maybe even at them. They heard deplorable and thought, well, I guess that's me then.
And the part where she said, we need to understand and empathize, totally lost.
It evaporated.
Yeah.
Because nuance doesn't go viral, but insults do. That's the danger of communication in this era. She ended up amplifying the very polarization she was trying to condemn.
It's the ultimate law of unintended consequences. You try to put a label on your opponent to weaken them, and you end up giving them a team jersey.
And a battle cry. I mean, think about it. If you tell a group of people that they are irredeemable, you're not leaving them any room to negotiate. You're telling them they have no place in your America. So what choice do they have but to fight to make sure your America never comes to be?
So looking back on all this, what's the big takeaway? Why does the story still matter so much?
Because it's a profound lesson in the power of language to create reality, not just describe it. When you paint huge swaths of the country with one brush, you create tribes. You solidify identities.
From one night at a fundraiser in New York to a global symbol of the populist revolt, Basket of Deplorables was so much more than a gaffe.
It's a masterclass in how political identity is forged in the 21st century, and it taught every campaign a lesson. You can insult the candidate, you can insult their policies, but you can never, ever insult the voters themselves.
It is a lot to think about. We've gone from the specific words in a speech to a Broadway-themed rally in Miami to the entire sociology of an election.
It's quite a journey.
It certainly is, and I think that's a good place to leave it for this deep dive. We've seen how a political strategy of division can backfire and become a tool for unity and empowerment for the other side.
And how a single phrase can echo through our politics for years and years.
Absolutely. So the question we want to leave you with is this. We think of political labels as weapons to push people out, to ostracize them. But as we saw here, sometimes that weapon gets caught and thrown right back. So ask yourself, in our world today, when does a label intended to shame a group actually become the very thing that gives them their power? Thanks for listening, and stay curious.